Hey guys, welcome to the Scholar Online YouTube channel, the channel that is all about learning. All right, so if you're new to this channel, please remember to subscribe to our channel, all right, and like this video and leave us a comment. Of course, be nice. And we'll get back to you and we'll try and answer as many of the comments as possible. And also, just the video that you're watching at the bottom there, click and open up that show more button and you're gonna find a lot of useful links. So if you hear me say, I'm gonna link it in the description below, that's where you're gonna find it. All right, and if you scroll down even further, you'll find links to our social media, my email address, and a lot of other useful stuff for you there. Okay, and we will try as well as usual to have video timestamps for this video so that you can go to certain parts of the video, and even if you come back in the future, you can just watch the parts of the video that is interesting to you. Okay, so what we're gonna build today, really exciting, is our own version of the Chat GPT, and the API is finally out this week, and I've already done a whole Flask application that uses the API that pretty much replicates the ChatGPT website. It does exactly what happens there, and but you're building it yourself on your own server, on your own platform, which means you can like pretty much integrate this into anything that you're building for yourself. All right, and I'm going to demonstrate to you. This is the final application. This is what it looks like. If you just refresh the page, there's nothing there. It's just this question, hi, my name is Karawa, I'm a helpful assistant, how can I help you? And then there's an input box over there where you can type your question to Karawa, who is the helpful assistant. And of course, it's just powered by ChatGPT in the background. It's taking whatever that question is, going to ChatGPT API. So this is the API part of it, and it's getting a response programmatically in the background using the API key that you have, and is bringing back the response and is displaying it back to you here. So I'm going to say, okay, what is the fastest way to learn Python programming for a beginner? Of course, you can ask it anything that you like. So when you ask the question, the first thing is the application just displays back to you what you've typed, what you've asked, and after that it's going in the back and getting the question from the Chat GPT, and then this is the response from the API. You can clearly differentiate between what you have typed and what the Chat GPT has typed, so that over time, if your conversation gets longer, you can remember what it is you said and what it is the Chat GPT said. So the response it gave me is, hey, there are several ways to learn Python programming: online, tutorial, books, practice projects, learn by doing. Let me ask it, I don't know, can you help write Python code? Garavo. Let me see, can you help write Python code? I'm gonna say, Chat. It takes a while, as you can see. It's a couple of or of course, what would you like the code to do? I don't know, I am trying to develop a landing page with Flask for a for a consultancy on a technical digital migration. Let's see, I'm trying to develop so I'm gonna need to make some space at the bottom here when this is that. All right, but of course, maybe it takes time because it goes to the back here. There you go. Oh, okay, so it did quite a bit. So this is so you start by saying install Flask, and then you create an application there, and then you put in that Flask. You say from Flask name, you do the index, and then you add the HTML, and then this is what's in your index, and then you run it, and there you go. Okay, and you run it on localhost 5000. But I mean, okay. This is typically what you would get from the Chat GPT. So we've built our own, and in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do this. So I hope you're excited, and let's get learning. I know it's been a while, but I have been waiting for the Chat GPT API to come out, and it came out just this week on the 1st of March. That's when we got the email that they've released the Chat GPT API. So that's exciting news. And of course, right here on Scholar Online, I'm going to show you exactly how you're going to start creating your first project using Chat GPT API. So this project that we're going to create today is actually very interesting. We're going to try and pretty much replicate the Chat GPT chat functionality. So if you go to ChatGPT right now, and you go to their website, obviously I'm on the ChatGPT Plus, which is another video that I didn't show, but guys, I've decided to pay for the Plus because I don't want the downtime that goes with the normal ChatGPT, and I'm very happy to pay these guys for their work that they're doing, because $20 a month is a very small price to pay for the value that ChatGPT brings, right? And so on the ChatGPT website, you can just chat to it and you can say, like, how are you today? Obviously it's gonna tell you I'm a language model, I don't have feelings. But basically you could ask it anything. So I'm gonna try and replicate this very same thing where you can just enter a question and the ChatGPT responds. But I'm gonna build this on a Python Flask project, and we're going to be using the ChatGPT API. So obviously the use cases are endless. Once you figure out exactly how the API works, you can use it for any other project. And I've got some exciting projects that I'm thinking about doing, but this is the absolute basics. So in this project, we are going to build a ChatGPT chatbot that works similar to this one, and you can put on your website and people can come and they can talk to the ChatGPT, and you would get the exact same responses that you would have gotten having put it here. And this is and once you figure out how this works, you can embed this anywhere on your project. You can use it for your for your assistants, you can use it for anything, and I'm really, really excited to get this done. Okay, so I'm gonna close this window because we're gonna rebuild that whole thing. So I'm gonna put this also in the link below, the article that talks about that they are introducing the new ChatGPT and Whisper API. I probably will make another video in the future about Whisper, but Whisper is really exciting. It's like a text to voice API that you can use to sort of like, if somebody types something, it can like transcribe it, right? And you can like get a read out if you have like a voice, you can put it into the GPT and you can get like a text out. So it's used for transcribing. So let's say you had a meeting and people were talking and it's an MP3 or a video, you can put into the Whisper API and get text. You can get that stuff transcribed, and that's like a whole business on its own, transcribing content, and you can transcribe even different languages. So I'm going to do a video on this in the future, but today I'm going to focus on the ChatGPT API. So to get started, they've already updated the documentation. They were very quick. So if you go to the documentation website, which is this one over here, and I will link this. So this is the old existing, if you've watched a lot of our videos, it's the same documentation website. So before, they used to have text completion documentation. If you remember, we've gone through this quite extensively in the videos we have here. They've had code completion APIs, which we've also covered in here. We even did the image generation API, like in the previous video where we did the DALL-E 2 API, creating videos online. Today, they've added, it's in the same location. So if you know how to get to those documentation, is exactly the same place. They've just added a chat completion sort of like tab to it. So you click on chat completion, and this is the chat completion API, right? So what I noticed was they don't have the chat completion on the playground. So at least they didn't have it Wednesday when I checked. So my internet is a bit slow today. What's going on? So if you go here and you look at all the models I've got, they don't have the chat completion. They don't have the DaVinci 3.5, which is the ChatGPT model. So you can't get this done over their current playground, but of course you can get it done over the ChatGPT whatever place. But what I love about the playground is, of course, is that what I really use it for is that I would test something here and then I would get the code for it, right? And then I would get the code in whatever language I need, and then so they don't have this yet for the ChatGPT. So you still have to like have a look at the documentation, which is very detailed and it's really all you need. So the new model that works with the ChatGPT engine is called a GPT 3.5 Turbo, and I know they're working on ChatGPT GPT-4, and I'm waiting for that. So this is 3.5. It's not quite 4. It's just somewhere in between Turbo. So obviously, I don't know, they just want to make you look a bit fancy, but this is what the model is called. So every time you make your API call, you're going to be making that API call to this model, ChatGPT 3 Turbo. All right, so you can read this when you have time, but basically all they're saying here is, yeah, it's a bit of an improvement on DaVinci 3, and obviously it's more geared towards being a chat engine, you know, sort of like focusing on chat, because with the previous DaVinci, it was more of a text generation. You could use it for creating documents, whatever it is you want to do on it, but this one is more like more like a chatbot, right? So there you go. This is basically all you need, right? So this is the code that you need to talk to the turbo. So basically you just call the OpenAI Python library, because this is only in Python, by the way. So sorry for guys who are writing in other languages. What I love about OpenAI, yes, is that it is in Python, which is my language, and I love it. So you start by importing OpenAI. So this is something you would install via pip install, and I'll show you how to do that. And then once you do that, you just basically say OpenAI chat completion create, you specify the model, and then you add the messages. Now these messages, the only important part that you need to add is basically, this is almost like the instruction to the chatbot, is that you are a helpful assistant. So I think you can actually modify this in what you want, and we're gonna test this, and you can test this as well when you build your project, like, because currently actually you can tell ChatGPT anything that it is, you know, like you can tell it, hey, you are a Linux. I've seen people using things like, you are a Linux what is it, like a Linux command line. So everything that you output will be in Linux language, right? And if you output something else, you will do it like this. And then they start to chat to it, and it acts like a Linux command line. Or you can tell it, hey, you are in this specific case, you are a helpful assistant because we want it to be a chatbot. But you could tell it anything that it is based on what you want. If you wanted to generate code for you, for example, you could say, you are a coding assistant. And then you could say, okay, cool. So generate me a Python code that can do this and that, So really, this instruction is very, very important. What you tell it to do, it will influence sort of like the output that it gets. And we're going to test this and try and see what other options are there for it, And that's pretty much it. I mean, you can read the rest of it and you can see the response format and all of that. But this is really all there is to it. It's like 2 lines of code and you can access the OpenAI chat completion. I was also amazed at how quickly it really works. Like, like if you look at the online version, it's really quick. It's way faster than guys who are used to the previous GPT-3 text DaVinci, and it's even cheaper. So if you read further, they explain like the price for generating text here, which they price it in terms of tokens, and a token can be anything from a word, a single like an A can be a token, and it can be this whole word can be a token, or it can be an, or it can be a. So a token is really how they break down the sentence that they bring back to you. But really think about a token like a word. If you don't want to overcomplicate things, imagine a token as a word. So maybe 1,000 tokens is 1,000 words, or similar to 1,000 words. So basically, the nice thing about this is that it is 10 times cheaper. So whatever words you would generate out of the previous text DaVinci, whatever you would pay for this, which already they've reduced the DaVinci prices, this is going to be like 10% of that. So this is going to be extremely affordable, which means that you're going to be able to build applications on this and charge people $2, $3, $10, maybe a day, a week, or a document, and you can still make a huge amount of profit. So I'm excited about the kind of projects I'm going to build with ChatGPT. So let's get started. To get started, I've made things very, very easy for you guys that are watching this video here today. We're going to do this on a Flask application. So you're going to need to have a little bit of Python experience, okay? You're going to need to have a little bit of Python experience. If you don't, check out the videos on our channel, and there's a lot of courses we've done on a Python Flask that you can go and familiarize yourself at the very least with just how a Python Flask application works. I don't want to spend this video teaching you about Flask, okay? Then once you've done that, I've created what I call a boilerplate template, which is like a starter template, I call it. And I've put it on our Scholar Online GitHub, okay, which I don't always do, but this specific case, I'm not really putting the final project, I'm putting the starter template. So this starter template doesn't have any ChatGPT stuff yet on it, but it is a Python Flask application template, so that if you know, like new to Flask and you don't quite know how to build a Flask app, or you're not quite sure how to do the folder arrangement, I don't want you to waste time focusing on building a Flask application. So I've created for you a boilerplate Flask app which works. Okay, and I'm going to show you right now. So all you do is I'm going to put this link in the description below of this video, and what all you need to do is you go to this link, on that green button that says code, you just open it up and you copy this, right? And make sure it's on the HTTPS, because that's how we're going to get the code. You just copy this, and then you need to make sure that you have Git installed in your machine, right? And I'm working off a virtual server from DigitalOcean, and I'll put a link of how you can get a virtual server as well, because that's the best way to do this project, especially if you're just playing around. You don't want to do all these things on your personal computer. So I'm working on a virtual server, and it's like you can get one for free for like 2 months, and then after that you only pay $5. I mean, nothing can be free forever, guys. DigitalOcean also has to make money, right? Now, once you've copied that, you go to the command line to the location where you want to run the project from. So I'm going to do it from my virtual server, like from this location, right? And then when you get here, you just say, and make sure you already have Git installed. And I can't cover how to install Git. Just Google install Git in my computer or whatever. And then you just basically say Git clone, right? And then you paste that link. That's all you do. And it's going to go and download that project for you, and all of that. And I'm going to just Git clone it anyway, even though I already have it. I'm just going to show you how easy it is. You don't need a password because it's an open project. You don't need to have access or whatever. Anybody can just go Git clone. And if you list now the folder that we're in, it will be called ChatGPT starter. So this is basically the project that I just Git cloned, all right? And you can, if you open it up, these are all the folders you're going to find inside, all right? And I'll take you through the structure of the folders. But for now, I'm going to just delete this. But in your case, you could rename it, because I've named it ChatGPT so that I know what it is, all right? So you could like rename it into ChatGPT, but I'm just going to delete it because I already have this on my computer. Obviously, I'm the one who built it, so I didn't really need to clone it. Okay, I need to do it like that. So let's delete that. Let me do it. All right. I just want to delete that. Why is it so hard to delete something? Cool, so that's gone. I think it's all the Git that's in there. You need to use sudo to get permissions to delete it. All right, so now once you've done that, okay, we're gonna work also from a virtual environment. Okay, so we're gonna like install virtual environment if you don't have it yet, and I'll just show you how to do that. I've got this on our Scholar Online documentation. A lot of these things that I do, because I actually put this documentation for me too, to remind myself how to do certain things. So I will also link this in the description. It's basically our documentation website. If you come here under the cheat sheet, no, I think it's under the Django. Just at the beginning, when you install a Django project, I show you how to install virtual environment. So this is basically it. Okay, so you're gonna run this command where it says install Django, but this one is actually installing and upgrading pip. And probably you already have pip installed in your machine anyway. And then once you've done that, you're gonna use pip install virtual environment. This virtual environment is a package, and probably if you're doing a lot of Python projects, you already have virtual environment installed, right? And once you've done that, then you're gonna create a virtual environment. You're gonna say virtual environment and call it whatever you want. Okay, so I've decided to call it, so let me copy this and show you. So I'm gonna say, for example, virtual environment, and I'm gonna call mine ChatGPT env, for example, right? So I could just say virtual environment and do that. Whatever you want to call it, you can call it anything you want, but I've decided to call it this. And then you enter, and then it's going to install that virtual environment. Once you've installed the virtual environment, over here is where you activate it. So basically you just say source, right? And then you put in the name of the virtual environment, right? And then you say bin, and then you say activate. And then you run this command, and then it activates your virtual environment. So I've already done that as well. And once you do that, you will see now that virtual environment will be inside of brackets at the beginning of your command line. So run all those commands and get to this point before you can continue, because if all of this is not working, you're not going to be able to continue. Pause this video here, maybe replay it, certain sections. If you get stuck, as usual, just go Google a solution, try and look in all the places you can find Stack Overflow online, try and find a solution. Come back to this point when everything is working and you got your virtual environment activated. All right. So once you've done that, there's a couple of packages we need to install. We need to install Flask. Flask is what we're going to use. And you need to do this when the virtual environment is activated. And then we're going to install OpenAI. OpenAI is this library, all right, on the chat completion, this library that we're going to import inside of our file, it has to be installed, all right? So just say pip install Flask OpenAI, all right? And that's it. And then once you've done that, you've installed Flask and OpenAI, it will run and install those things for you. I'm not going to run it because I've already installed mine, but you just rerun it and install those things. And then once you've done that, then you can CD into your folder. Okay, so I've renamed mine ChatGPT, like I said, and now this is my folder. This is everything that you've downloaded from this. So these files are exactly the same. There are these files here. Okay, it's the README, the AI API. Even though that's empty right now, there's nothing in here. This is where the AI API is where we're gonna put our API code. It's basically where we're gonna put this code. All right, and then after that, it's the app.py. App.py is this file where we're gonna run just the Flask application. It's gonna be very simple in your case. I mean, you've already downloaded it. So this is the app API a file. It just got just what you need there. And then the config file, this is where we're gonna put our configuration. The config file is specifically where we're gonna put your OpenAI API key. So this is very important. Before you proceed, nothing will work without the API key. So what you need to do is that you need to have an OpenAI account right now, and it's very simple to get one. All right, you just go to this openai.com website, which I can also, if you're on the documentation, you are on the website. So if you're on the documentation, you follow the link and you're looking at this, at the very top over there, you can see your information, and you can see here where it says view API keys. This is if you are already logged in. If you are not logged in, over here maybe it might have something that says login, and then you just log in with your username and password. If you don't have one, you can create an account. It's just like any other website. Go create an account there. Then basically once you have logged in, you'll see here where it says view API keys, and this is very important, the view API keys part, that you mustn't share the API key with anybody. This is your key because you get charged for it, and it's for all the the tokens that you ask. So it's very important that you keep this very, very private. So once you have viewed your API keys, you can come and then you can go inside of the config.py file. I won't show mine because I've pasted my API key. There's a spot in there. I think if I show you on here on the documentation, on the config file, there is a place in the config file here where it says enter OpenAI API key. I've made everything very simple for you today. You just remove this and you paste the key there inside of the bracket. So it needs to be like a string of sorts. Okay, so just remove only the words that say enter OpenAI API key here and enter the key there, right? And leave everything inside of brackets. That's basically all you need. So that's that file. And then obviously the static file. Inside of the static file, if you go there, you'll see there's like a folder called images. Inside of the images folder, I've just added a favicon file in there. So the favicon is the file that appears at the top here. Okay, if you wanna make a different file appear at the top, whether you've got your own logo or something like that, just go replace the file that's in there. Make sure you call it favicon, but you can put a different file in there, right? And you can call it anything actually that you want. Just make sure that you refer to the right file inside of the HTML. That's it. And then after that, you got your templates folder. Your templates folder is where all your HTML is going to sit. We only have one HTML file for this project. So if I take you to our templates HTML, there it is. It's the index.html. You can just ignore the 404. I have it always in my boilerplate template. And inside of the HTML, I've already created this HTML file for you. Okay, so you don't have to create it. I've already created it for you with all the required libraries. So we are going to be using Bootstrap, CSS library at the top. We're going to be using at the bottom a Bootstrap library as well. It's also via CDN that will be working. Also, you don't have to worry about getting the static files in your project. And then I also got jQuery that we're going to need, and I've already installed that for you inside of this file. So if you look back at the GitHub, if you go into the templates and you look into the index.html file, so this is the one you would have git cloned, you can see this is exactly the file that I'm starting with. All right, it's got already the bootstrap at the top, it's got the bootstrap at the bottom with the jQuery on it, and then there's just like this list group that I've added because we're going to use that to display the chat conversation in a list group format. Okay, so if you actually just run this project, so I'm going to just save everything as it is, right? Let's say I just say file, save everything as it is, and then I just say Python app.py. That's how you run the Python. Make sure that you have enabled port 8888 on your virtual server, because inside of our app.py we are running on port 8888. If you have a firewall activated, like you followed some of my tutorials, you would have had a firewall activated. Just enable the port 8888 on the firewall, or else you will not be able to find the application. And once you do that, you can see over here, in fact Flask does this very nicely. You can just copy that over there, so you can see your virtual machine and the port, and then you basically just paste it and then you run it, and this is basically what the application looks like. There isn't anything on it now. It's basically, if I open the HTML there, it's basically just we talk, at the top there I have Scholar Online ChatGPT demo, that's what you see there, and then get started with ChatGPT OpenAI, that's what I have there. And then I just have a paragraph here that tells you, okay, about a little bit about the project. This project is created for educational purposes. Okay, I must just repeat that. All right, and then after that I just tell you that, okay, you're gonna need the API key to get this to work. And then I've got like example of what I want the chat to look like. Now, obviously a chat is a chat between two people. It's you talking to the chatbot. So what I've done is that I've just created, the only thing I've changed is like the logo. So let's say when I'm talking, I want it to have this logo, and then when the chat GPT is talking, I want it to have that chat GPT logo. So I've already just like, I've pre-installed these two. So if you look at the HTML template, there's that anchor over there, part of the list, and then there's that anchor over the part of the list conversation, right? This anchor is the one that says, hello, how are you today? And the image that's being displayed here is that favicon.png file, which is sitting inside of our PNG, which is this file. All right, so that is the file that's being displayed there. So that's the file that you see at the top there. And then over here it just says, hello, how are you today? So basically what I want is to now put whatever I'm typing over here, and not say hello, how are you today, because we haven't started chatting yet. I want to basically put what our chat over there, and then when the chat GPT responds, you can see here I just have this fake text, lorem whatchamacallit. But when the chat GPT is working, we're gonna replace this text with whatever the chat GPT says, and then when you talk again, we're gonna continue the chat that way. So there's a couple of things that needs to happen. The first is that we need to identify whether I'm the one talking or whether it's the GPT talking, and we can figure out which logo we want to display there. And then the second thing that we want to be able to do as well is that obviously we can't add the information on the HTML directly. We have to like sort of append. We have to append the content every time it's available. So whether I'm the one who has typed something, for the HTML for this page to be able to display what I've typed, I basically have to add to this HTML. I have to add another anchor list item that it looks like this with whatever it is I have typed there. I have to append it to the bottom here, because this page only displays what you have put on the HTML. Now the traditional way of displaying HTMLs is not going to be possible, because generally you have to build the HTML and then display it like what I've done here. I've built it and then I've displayed it. But with the chat arrangement, we have to almost display the information on the go. So as a content, as I'm typing and I click enter, the information then becomes available at that point. Then at that point, I need to be able to create the HTML element that is gonna be able to display it, and then I have to append it on the fly as I've created it. And then at the same time, I need to then grab that question and send it to the API and ask the API that question. And when I get an answer, then I need to come back and then create another anchor list item and then append the answer of what the API has said. You understand? So there's a bit of a process that needs to be done there, and I'm going to cover with you exactly how to do that. At this point, I just want you to note what this anchor looks like. All right, so this anchor item, this is very important. If you're not sure what it looks like, you can actually just like cut it, don't delete it, and we're gonna like maybe put it at the bottom of this page there, you know, or something like that. And then we're gonna remove that. All right, because what needs to happen is that we need to display these things on the fly as we go. So this actual div is going to end up actually being empty like that. And then what will happen is that as I type a question, then whatever it is I type is going to be appended inside of the div, and then it's going to create that chat thing, right? And obviously we need some sort of form. Okay, we need some sort of input. This is an input where I can enter information. So it's like a form, sort of like HTML input. So this is where it is. It's this input box, which I've given an ID, and I've given it a class of form control. I've put it inside of a div, which is inside of an input group, and a margin bottom 3. So there's a bit of space at the bottom after that. And then what I've done with it, I've then added a button. This is the button that says Ask ChatGPT. I've just appended it to the input using an input group. So this is standard, Bootstrap stuff, so that this button just looks on the same page as the input box. All right. And so that's all I've done. So this is basically an input box, and then this is a button that's appended. Input append is appended to the end of this input, and it's all sitting in an input group, and then it's just at the bottom of this div list group, and this list group is this list group here. So everything that gets added will come into this list group. So this is at the bottom of that, and I've removed what was in the list group before. So if I save this, by the way, if you're used to watching my videos, you'll know I don't actually type my information off the server that I'm running it from. I type it in my virtual machine. So I'm going to have to like save it, right? Remove the lists. And then I push into my virtual server. You don't have to do it like this. I've shown people how to do this. So you type using, so this is the Atom. I type using Atom, and then I push to the virtual server. So I push this stuff here. So if you now, let's say you want to open this, I want to actually open the HTML so I can show you that this HTML looks different. All right, so I'm going to open the templates index.html because I've pushed the changes now. You'll see it's exactly what I've done there. You see, there's the input group. You see the list group, what it looks like. I've removed the stuff in there. So as I'm typing here, I'm pushing the changes over there, and then I can run it. Okay, so I can do now Python app.py. And if I go back to the website now, there'll be nothing. Oh, hello, how are you today? Okay, so this is what I'm putting at the bottom here. Okay, we don't really want this. Okay, I'm wondering where did that come from. All right, so basically this is how it will start. There'll be an input box, and you can type whatever that you want. So if I type this now, let me just type like an actual question. Hello, right? And I say Chat GPT, nothing happens. Okay, not because we haven't wired anything, we haven't put any scripts. So we're gonna get started with just at the very least, let's like say when we type this, let it go into the chat box so I can at least see what I've typed. Okay, so we're gonna use, this is where jQuery comes in. That's why I have jQuery installed. All right, so we're gonna use jQuery to do that. So I'm gonna say script over here, and then I'm gonna say when I type something in here, I just want it to be displayed at the top there. I think that's why I left this one here, so that you'd be able to do it. So for that, I'm going to say I need to first of all collect what I've just typed. So let me say variable, I'm gonna call it a question, is equals to, you know, with jQuery you need to start with a $, and you do that, and then you do that, and then you put this so that you can access via, I love to access via IDs, but you can access via, you know, anything really. But the ID is important. I like to do it that way because then I know, you know, that I can't give more than one thing the same ID. So over here, this input, I want to collect what I've put inside of this ID that says chat input. Okay, so I'm going to say chat input like that, and I'm going to put it in here. So the hashtag just accesses an ID. All right, if I had a dot here, it would access, for example, a class. All right, or I could even have like an HTML element, like a paragraph or whatever, you know. But for now, I'm only concerned about the ID that says chat input. So I want to get this chat input ID, and I want to get the value. All right, so the value that's inside this, I'm going to put it into a variable called question. So once I've done that, I then want to take this question, and then I want to put it into an HTML element, and then I want to append obviously this list group with that question. All right, so there's a couple of steps here, and I don't want to get this wrong. So the first thing that we need to do here is we obviously want to remove we need to remove this, you know, because after we've added it into a variable, we don't need it anymore, because we will this must be now 0. Okay, so we can say ChatGPT value is now an empty string. So what that will do is that once you've submitted once you've gotten that question, this will now be an empty string. All right, we're going to create an empty string, and we're going to call this empty string HTML data. All right, then I'm going to say HTML data. I'm going to add to it, so you can just use plus equals to. It works just like the way Python works. And then I'm going to use this back strings. Okay, they are not the same as the normal strings, and they are not the same as like the double quote marks. So these are double quote marks to represent a string. This is a single quote mark to represent a string, but these are the back quote marks. Okay, they are slightly different, and the reason why we're going to use them is because we want to define a variable inside of a string. All right, so with the way JavaScript works, this is just how you do it. So I'm going to say let HTML data have something that's going to be appended to it, and then I'm going to just make some space over here, and then I'm going to paste that that whole anchor list item that I just copied from the bottom there. All right, and you'll see here, so this HTML element, we are now going to add it to this variable that we defined. So this variable, we define it as an empty string, and then we sort of append to this empty string variable with this backstring quote mark, and it's just that like this anchor element, right? But now here, instead of this hello, how are you today, right, over here is where I want to put in the whatever it is that I have typed. Right, so what I'm going to do is that we're going to use the dollar sign. We're going to use close curly brackets, and then we're going to enter now a variable. You can now enter a variable inside of this back tick strings using this dollar sign and the curly brackets. So the variable that I want to enter is this variable here that I defined at the top here as question. Okay, so I want to enter this question variable over there. All right, actually I can then make this empty after that, so that this can follow a certain arrangement, and then I can make that empty, and then yeah. So let's have a look at this. Let's see again what we're doing. We are defining a variable called question by getting the information that's inside of this input box, right? And once we get that input value, we put it into this variable. Then we create another variable that we call HTML data, and we append to that variable this whole HTML element. And then once we have done that, we add this variable called question inside of this. So now this variable is defined, but now we need to put the variable inside of the list group. Okay, so we need to now go back to the list group, this ID called list group. We need to create again using jQuery. We'll say we'll use dollars, and the same way we defined an ID. So this list group will go and collect the div element or any element that you have defined in here as with that ID called list group, and then we just basically say append. Okay, so we append to it, and whatever we put in this append is what will be added to it. So what we want to append is this HTML data. All right. So we want to basically append this HTML data to it. And once we've done that, so basically what should happen is as soon as I finish typing, then this goes and collects what I've typed in here, and it adds it into this HTML element, and then it appends it to the chat. And it does this all on the fly, and this is the beauty of jQuery. Okay, and you can do this with a lot of other JavaScript frameworks, and like your React and things like that. But you know me, I don't like React. So let's say we're gonna test the append. All right, and see what we get. So basically I'm gonna just restart my server to be sure. And if I refresh this page, at the very least that should be gone. Oh, I see what's going on here. So immediately what's happening is it just appended it immediately, and then there was nothing in here, and it just put an empty thing. So what's happening here is that all of this is running. It's just running on its own. So I need to actually put it into a button click function. So this needs to happen after you've clicked the button. All right, so let me just remind myself how to do the jQuery on click function. So this is the code for it, and I'm showing you this because you can literally Google these things and yourself and find the answers, right? So I'm going to copy this click function, and I actually, funny enough, copy it from there all the time. And the button that I need to work with is this GPT button. All right, so instead of the P over there, we're gonna put the thing for the ID, and it's the GPT click button, right? And then everything that we have in here, right, like all of this, right, all this code needs to happen after that button has been clicked, right? So it needs to happen in the click function. So it shouldn't just happen on its own, it should happen in the click function. All right, so let's go and have a look there. Let's restart this, and let's go and refresh this page. Okay, so there's nothing there now because we haven't clicked the button. It doesn't run on its own anymore. So let me just say, for example, hi, my name is Skolo Online, right? And then press the button, and then your logo comes through there and whatever you've typed. Okay, today is a sunny and hot day in Johannesburg. All right, okay, you basically have to click the button, and so every time you add a chat, it gets appended and it removes whatever you've typed. What removes what you've typed in there is this line of code. If you didn't have this line of code, whatever you've typed would have remained in the input. So you remove it by doing that, and you append. So basically, obviously, now we are chatting to ourselves. I'm just typing, and whatever I'm typing just comes up here. So basically what I want is I want to type, and then I want to take what I've typed and I want to send it to the ChatGPT API, and then I want to get a response from the ChatGPT API, and then I want to bring back that response, and then I want to display the response in here. Over and above that, I also want to display it over the different logo, because I want to be able to differentiate what I've typed and what the ChatGPT has typed. Okay, so that's the next step. Now for that, we're going to have to go and actually create the function that creates the response. And to do that, we're going to go into obviously the chat completion API documentation over here, and we're going to just copy what's in here over here just the way that it is. In fact, you could even do it like that, and then go into, I've already created an AI API file, and I'm going to just hoy that in there. And what I want you to note at this stage is that we need to make, because this is a different file from the way we're going to run our things. So instead of your app.py file, just make sure at the top there you have imported AI API file. So this AI API is just this file we're working from. We want to be able to import all the functions from here, which if you obviously you would have it already, because you would have been using my template, but in case you were not, that's just something you might miss at the top there. Just make sure that you import that there. So once we've done that, we know that we have to, I think with the OpenAI API, you need to initialize so you need to get the API key. All right. And the API key is going to be inside of our config.py file, and the specific location that it's inside the config.py file, the specific location is the config file .developmentconfig.open API key. So if we look back at our files and we go back to the config file, inside of the config file, this is where you would have put your API key. So the API key is inside of the config file first of all. So at the top here, you need to import config. So after you've imported config, then you say config.developmentconfig, because that's the file that we have in here, .developmentconfig, and that .secret key, .api key, like that, .openai API key. So this is where that comes from. And then we just do this to initialize the OpenAI with the key. Otherwise, the stuff doesn't work, because you need to specify what your API key is. So you initialize the API key like that, or you could even do it like that and say .api key is equals to that. So you could even just do that. This will also work. So once you've done that, then we're going to create a function. I love to have my things inside of functions. So I'm going to call this function generate chat response, and it's going to take in a prompt. All right. And then what needs to happen in here? Then I'm going to copy all of what's in here, and then I'm going to put it inside of this function. All right. But I'm going to break it down for you, because all of this is not necessary. So you can see, let's just see what's going on here. Break this down a little bit. Let's close that. What's going on here is that you have a list of messages. You see, this is a list of objects. And in these objects, you define very specific things so that the API knows what's going on. So what's the first line inside of your list is the actual instruction, which is what I was saying, that maybe we can play around with modifying this instruction. Like this instruction says, you are a helpful assistant. It could say anything. It could say you are a Linux command line. It could say you are a developer generating code. It could say you are a manager that is hiring people, and you know, whatever it is that you want that chat to be, you can give it that instruction, and its responses will be in line with that, will be aligned to that. And this is what we never got on the website version of it. You never got, it was always defined as an assistant, but you could define it as anything really, right? So now I'm going to leave that you are an assistant and remove everything else, because the rest is now you, whatever you're going to ask that assistant to do. So here you're saying, this is the system defines it. After you've created the system stuff, then you say, you know, who won the World Series in 2020, for example. Then it's going to give you a question, right? So now what I'm going to do is, I don't want to define it in here like that, right? I actually want to define messages outside of this function, so that I can make this function a little bit simpler, so that you can see what's going on here. So I'm going to say messages is equals to an empty list, right? And then I'm going to say messages dot append. By the way, append in Python works similar to append in JavaScript. I didn't know that. So, but append is like you add to that list. We're going to append this role. You are an API assistant, right? And then over here, this messages, we're going to replace this here with the variable messages. You see, now suddenly this function looks a little bit better, right? And then we're going to give this a variable. Response is equals to, because we want to be able to access whatever it is we got outside of the response. Then once we've done that, we need to then enter this next part, the assistant, the question itself. All right, so I'm going to put it here so you can see what this question looks like. So this question is an object that has a role user, and the content is the actual question, which is, I'm assuming, is that prompt that would have come over there. Whatever the person would have typed would be that question. So what you might want to do is you might want to say over here, a question is equals to this empty object, and then you can say question dot the role. The role is going to be the user, right? And then the question content, the content is going to be, this is the whatever the question the person has asked in there, right? So that's going to be the prompt. So we're going to bring in whatever the question person asks programmatically into this function, and then we're going to create the response. All right, so now we have rewritten this function in a more Pythonic way that is flexible for repeat use, and now you don't have to write this function every time someone asks a question. You can just write it like this, and the only thing that changes is this prompt, and you just put in a different prompt and you get a different response and so forth. And then we want to get the answer out of this, whatever that answer is. All right, so and I think at the bottom here they actually define it. They define that this is what the response looks like, and I've tested it. I can confirm this is correct. It really is what it looks like. So what I can do, I can just like, copy. Even here they've given you, specifically, how to even access the thing from a Python way. So you're gonna say the answer from the question is equals to whatever this response. All right, and the choice is whatever. Just be careful this backticks to replace it with proper Python ticks. All right, so these are decorated ticks. They're not going to work inside of Python code. They will give you an error. But other than that, the structure of the way they described it, even in the documentation, works. But in case it doesn't, like in future, let's say you watch this video later and they've changed stuff, you can always print out this response, because that's normally what I do with any API. I print out whatever the response, and I look at it and I see what actually has been returned to me, and then I figure out how to parse to get to this. So you can see this response, you need to get the response choices. This is that, and then the response choices is a list. So I need the choices at 0, the first choice that comes. And then inside of the choices, I need I think it's message content. So it's message content. That's exactly what it is. So this response is actually correct. This is what you would get. And it's possible that there was an error, because this happens actually because I use this API quite a bit. I've used it for the DaVinci 003, 001, 002. So there are times when the API system is down, whatever, and then you don't actually get a response. So sometimes they ask the question that doesn't have a response. This can happen, that this is going to throw an error. And if you write Python code, you're quite familiar with exceptions, and you know that you need to catch them. So right now what we need to do is that this is the kind of line that can throw an exception. So what I want to do is I want to put it inside of a try catch block, so that if there's an exception over here, I can catch it. All right, if there's an exception, I'm not even going to worry what type of an exception it is. It's an error, right? And I'm just going to say oops, you beat the AI. Try a different question. If the problem persists, come back later. Because it could happen, like there was a day, for the whole day, the entire API was down, and whatever you sent to the API, you were just getting like some errors and stuff like that. And that is the kind of situation that would cause this to throw an exception, right? But other than that, I doubt they will change their API version to have this structured in a different way. But if that happens, you can just like check. I mean, you would want to be checking on your code on a regular basis to test this kind of things, right? And see, has the response changed, has the API version changed, and then you want to return the answer. So return the answer means this whole function returns this one word called answer. Okay, and we're going to test this function. So obviously when I write a function, and this is not really how you want to test a function, you want to actually write a test code, but we are on YouTube and we don't have time for all of those things. So we are just going to like manually just like run this on the command line and see that actually this thing works, okay, before we try to do it on the HTML. So I'm going to just like save this and then try that. Actually, I don't want to do it like that. I don't want to run the Flask application. I've put this inside of AI API file, so I can just do Python like that, and then I can define my own prompt. So I can define a prompt, whatever I want a prompt to be, right? So let's say a prompt is, I don't know, what is a CRM, right? This is the question I want to ask. That's a prompt. And then I want to then import this file called AI API. So import AI API. And then after I've imported it, I just want to run ai.api.theprompt. Okay. So I'm going to say AI API that I've imported and then dot that function. And I've already defined what the prompt is, and then I'm running this function with that prompt. It should just return the answer. Okay. Thank you. How may I assist you? Oh, okay. So I haven't, what I need to do is I need to, we have this question and we've defined the prompt, and then we need to have messages. Append this question. Sorry. So basically what's happening here, it's just sending this message is role system, you're a helpful assistant, and it's not saying anything else. All right, so basically what I want is this question that I've created, I need to append it to the messages so that when it creates this response with these messages, it has also this question part appended to it. All right. I'm just pushing changes to my server. Don't worry. If you're not using a server, just, sleep through this bits. I need to actually import this again. So I need to say Python again, and I'm going to say import AI API. And then I'm going to say my prompt. Let me just get the spelling right. All right. My prompt is, what is a CRM? Okay. 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 Once I've, okay, I can use like two types of question marks, and then once I've done that, I'm just gonna say AI API dot that. So AI API dot that. There you go. So a CRM stands for customer relationship management. There you go. So we're good to go. So my function works. I'm happy that it works. Now all we need to do is to now call this function from our file, from our HTML side. I mean, from inside of the app.py. So we need to call it in here. So you'll see that this one accepts a post and a get request. So we need to actually post to that question or the input. So when a client enters an input here, we need to collect this input and post it to this root and then call the function from there. So let's start by actually posting that. So let's go to the index.html. And you can see already here, we already have that variable called question. So we already have this variable called question. That's the question, that's what we need to send to the thing. So over here, after appending that, while we are still inside of the click where this variable is defined, I'm going to just put in here that we're gonna, do an Ajax call. to the server. All right, so we're gonna input an AJAX call to the server right over here. Okay, so this is what the code for an AJAX call is going to look like for us. Okay, so we're gonna call AJAX, all right, and from calling AJAX, the type needs to be a post request, and then you're gonna enter the URL. The URL is this home URL, so you can just enter it like that. Okay, and once you've entered the URL, you need to enter the data that you're sending to the back. So the data, whatever the variable, we're gonna call prompt, and then this question is the same question that's being asked at the top there. All right, so inside of the app.py here, we need to say if request.method is equals to post. So this is if they've done a post request, and for you to use this, you need to make sure that you are you have the methods over here, both get and post, and you need to have installed your request there, because that's the same request we're doing there. So if request.method is equals to post, we're going to define a variable, and I'm just going to continue calling it a prompt. All right, and the prompt is going to be request is going to be request dot form, I think. I'm confusing a lot of things with Django. So Django and Flask work slightly different, but I spend all my time, maybe 99% of my time on Django. Request.form, and then we have to enter the name of the variable, and the name of the variable is a prompt over here. So we'll say request.form prompt. So this is the prompt that we get. Then after we get this prompt, then we need to import this AI API, and then we need to say, like, give it a variable, say answer is equals to this AI API dot whatever that function that we need over here from the AI API with the prompt. Okay, so it's AI API dot that function, and then this prompt is the same prompt that we have over there. All right, so now once we do that, now this answer is going to be whatever this has given us. And I think from my recollection, working with AI API, they use new lines to define like breaks in the thing. And if you want to display it like maybe in HTML, you might want to replace the new lines with a break, for example, so that it displays properly. So I'm going to say replace whatever I get as an answer here, right? I want to replace a new line character with a break, an HTML break. So this will have like HTML breaks in it wherever there was a new line, so that when you display it in the front, wherever it intended for there to be a new line, it does it with it. It's just like a fix for me to have the answer the way I want it. And then now the answer is going to be this prompt, so I need to then send it to the front. Okay, so I need to return it as a JSON object. Okay, so I'm going to say return, and I've already imported JSONify at the top there. All right, so I'm going to say return JSONify whatever it is that the variable that I want to be JSONified. So in this specific case I'm going to say res. I'm just going to call a variable that's called res, and I'm going to say res is an empty object, and then res dot answer, all right, is equals to answer, this answer here. Okay, or you can even just do it like that, dot answer is equals to that. All right, and then you can remove that, and then you can say JSONify the res, and let's give it a status code of 200 that everything went well. Okay, so what's going to happen here is inside of the root, we are going to look for the post for when anything gets posted, because this Ajax is going to post this data to us. Is going to be a prompt. It's going to be an object with a variable inside called prompt, and the prompt is going to be this question that was entered there that's displayed back. So this question we displayed back, we get it from the input, the user input, and then we displayed back to the user inside of this HTML data, inside of that list. And then after we displayed back to the user, we then turn the input to 0, so there's nothing there already for the next chat. And then after we do that, then we append that list group with whatever that the user asked. But after we do that, we still get the question that's still there inside of the question variable, and then we add it into an AJAX request to send this to our server. and we will send it under this object with the value of prompt. Then when we get it in the server, we look for it inside of the request.post, and we get it as a prompt, and then we take that prompt and we enter it into this function of the AI API, and then we get a response. And whatever that response that we get, we put it inside an object called response answer, and then we send it back to the front. We JSONify it to send it back to the front. Okay, so this is quite a bit that's happening. You can slow down and play this part yet again just to make sure that you understood exactly what's going on. But once you've done that, so we're going to have an object that looks like, let me just like type it at the bottom here so that I don't forget. We're going to have an object that looks like this. It's going to be like a JSON object, and this JSON object is going to have a key called answer and a value of whatever it is that the API has given us. So this object here is what we're going to be sending. It's going to be the answer plus whatever it is that we send is going to be an object that looks like this. All right, so here in the front, when it gets sent back to the front inside of the data here, what we can do is that we can then do the exact same thing, so we can say let we can define a new variable. Let's call it GPT data. All right, let GPT data be an empty string, like the same way we've done over here, right? And then append to this GPT data. All right, append to this GPT data with the backticks. All right, and append to this GPT data the exact same thing. I'm actually just gonna copy it from there, right? I'm gonna copy it from here and paste it there. The only thing I want to change is this image. So I'm going to go and get this image that I want to replace this with, paste that image there. So this is a different image. So when this HTML component, for example, gets created, it uses this different image, and this is the image of the AI logo, for example. And then over here, instead of displaying back the question, we need to display whatever the data that comes back from the thing. But remember, this data is inside of an object, so this data is the whole object itself. So I actually want the object.answer, display back the object.answer in there. All right, and then once we've done that, then we need to append the list group. Remember, appending just adds to the bottom, it just appends to it, to inside. It doesn't like remove anything. So inside of over here, inside of the success block, right, we go and we say list group append. Instead of HTML data, we append the GPT data, and this GPT data now is the response from our GPT, and it is got a different logo, right? And this response, we are getting it from the AJAX call. So this AJAX call, when it makes an AJAX call, it sends to the AJAX. It sends to the server this question, right? And inside of the success is where the answer comes back, So we wait for it. It's like I don't know why they call it in JavaScript. You have those await, kind of things where it's async. It's gonna wait for you to get the answer back, and then when it gets it, it creates that variable. It creates that object. Not that object, that component. And there's a different image in the component. I'm just checking through everything, and then there it's going to be the answer, and then it appends to the list group. So it appends the same place that it would have appended, and I think that should be it. Okay, so I'm going to save this. Python app.py, we're playing it this in the app this time. So when we refresh this, there'll be nothing there. And then we're gonna say, what does a president do? All right, and you must click the button. Then it prints the question that you've asked, but at the same time, it's getting the answer from the API. And there it is. The primary role of a president is to lead a country. Okay, so I think what we'll do is, so actually this is already done. You can even we can test the other thing, recommend, I want to test the breaks and the the thing, because I know it will give me I'm going to ask a question that gives me answers in a list format. Suggest blog topics for a fashion design house in Paris, fashion 2023. Right? So here with blog topics, I expect it to give me a list. So I want it also to display properly over here. That's why I did that thing where I'm replacing the new lines with the breaks. Otherwise, this would have all appeared in a paragraph. All right. The evolution of Parisian fashion. So it suggests blog topics. So basically, you've built your chatbot, right? But I think what would be really nice is when you get started for this not to be blank. Okay. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to take this. No, I'm actually going to take this, right? And I'm going to paste it into the list group here, so that there's something a default that gets started. And over here I'll say, hi, I am the my name is Karabo. The helpful. How can I help you today? And over here inside of the whatever, I'm gonna give it a name inside of the definition. I'm going to say, your name is Karabo. You are a helpful assistant. Okay, so let's try that. Have a starting, let's call it a starting, no text or whatever. Cool. And then okay, that has already restarted the server. So at least when you get here, when people come here for the first time, there's something that says Karabo. All right, so you can say, hey Karabo, what is the fastest way to lose some weight? Let's see. And it's going to go get the response. Hello, there isn't necessarily a fastest way to lose weight, as it varies from person to person. This is typically what ChatGPT will say. I ask ChatGPT this question every day, and it says the same thing. Well, I don't know. I'm thinking maybe I'll get a different answer one day. But yeah, there you go. So we are done with our project. Hey, so how long did it take us? 1 hour and 11 minutes, and we spent most of it just building the HTML, actually, right? But imagine you could do this anyway, right? So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.